21. This is Friday and the Sheria Wiki. As usual, there could never be a better way to end the week than to be on Sheria Wiki on the show. And today we are having kuna mahali tunakuanga na kwanza resident EKURU AUKOT ni program yake, alafu tuko na president LSK Nelson Havi. Kuna watu wamekuja wakanifanyia kesi hapo jana kidogo, akasema sijui embattled nini, sijui kumaliza Kiingereza shule. And atuambia that we have MUGAMBI LAIBUTA, is a teacher, legislative teacher of law at KSL, and also any advocate of the AUKOT. So karibuni sana to tackle like kwanza joining, please like when you like, I get to know that you're watching us, and after you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is a tackle, and tackle begins now. Lakini kama kawaida, kabla tuanze kazi lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu kirudi na kuja kuwapa salamu zenu, alafu tuingie kazi haraka upesi. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, we glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive this Friday. We thank you for the week that has been. We thank you for this show. As we start off, be with us even as we have this discussion, may be able to enrich the fabric of this country. Be with us when we finish. Glory and honor shall come back to your name. Just mighty name I do pray, trusting and believing. Amen and amen. Haya, wacha niwape salamu haraka upesi kwa sababu naona mko wengi. Robbie Chaps, anza welcome, asante sana. Kusema the Sam, good morning. Robbie Chaps, asante sana. Tuko ndani kwa HKP my Baba Fidel, good morning. Gerald Bitoku, you're following live from Mogotio. Ben Menja, good morning. Gerald Kipkali, Arab Kosgei, anasema tuned in kama kawa from Rainbow. Asante Anthony Rungu, welcome. Madam Johnson, T Johnson, good. Asante Anthony Baringetun, good morning. Mwangi Simon Gasman, anasema yuko ndani. Asante David Kamo, good morning. Team Tako, to see everyone. Justo Kipto, anasema tuned in. Emmanuel Sadem, good morning. Good morning to my brother Alberto Batos, watching from Kapenguria. Karoki Wamasi, tuned in, following from Kayole. Nyeri people here is our show. Amkeni tafadhali. Asante sana. Around Njeru, tuned in from Kagio Kirinyaga. Johannes Mien, Emmanuel Serem, naona ameamusha Honorable Moses Nyiganet Kebene na Cheptap Kuridat, Emmanuel Serem ameamusha Isaac Serem, Leonard Serem na Julie Chirchir. Naona Bioma Maranya, good morning. Triumph Tackle, tuned in from Sharjah, United Emirates. Alright, asante. Marias Kipkuri, tuned in from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you. Jackson Oire, in your tackle sasa, waiting for Avi's uppercuts. He's full of undercuts. You gotta see Mheshimiwa Jared Kimero, good morning Gerald, to call live from Kosaje Tapsagoi na kijana mdogo Jared Dono. Salimia sana kijana Jared Dono, salimia sana watu wa Tapsagoi wote. Yeye mheshimiwa wenu amekuja ameleta salamu kabisa. Haya, Justus Otumoi, tuko ndani. Asante. Thuku Mwaniki, watching from Kikuyu Town, good morning. Steven Itomaga, following from my morning favorite show, pass my jumbo to the panel. Asante. Africa Gopo, Kericho, good morning. Kwetalel Hole Kodo, niko ndani from Mingo. Asante sana. Nyakwartinda, following from Lucky Sama. Godwin Ketanui, watching from Perth, Australia. Thank you all the guys from diaspora, but Australia, the land down under. Caleb Kipkemai, following loud and clear from Torit, South Sudan. Shazi Chaps, tuned in from Moiben. Cleveland Otieno, good morning. Team Tackle, asante. Keter Bernard, niko ndani from Bomet, Makimenj Kiblombe. Lawrence Kigen Kiblagat, good morning. Taklas, tuned in from Uduma Center. Kimaliel Babayao, good morning. Gerald Bitok with today's panelist, watching from Karen. Haya, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Unipigie tu niambie mahali upo, State of Nation uko vipi. Only 10 minutes. Unipigie simu pale 0779-800-010. 0779-800-010. Sijui kama nambari imeingia pale, tafadhali producer niwekea namba hapo. Ana kama yangu imefreeze kidogo. Niwekea namba kama jamaa amejaa na salamu hapa. Avis, sijui kama umekuja na watu wako wa Western. Salamu ni mingi. Wakili Shada TJ Omondi Makakinji, good morning, following from the conversion from Odofin in Yatike, Migori County. Say hi to my daughter Elsa Eliana Greke Omondi PhD. Esther Mutoni from Texas anasema vopo from Texas. Asante sana. Liki Sara Jeborio anasema good morning, tuned in from Upper Hill. Asante sana. I wish to continue giving those salamos, lakini wacha nikimbie kwanza kwa wageni. Meanwhile, I'll give you 10 minutes ya simu 0779-800-010 0779-800-010. Tafadhali niwekee nambari hapo kwa comment section waangalie, lakini wacha nirudi studio kidogo alafu nakuja kuona. Naanza na mwenyeji Daktari EKURU. Jambo rais.
Sijambo Bitoka, habari yako?
Salama sana, good to see you.
Wiki imekuaje?
Wewe unajua imekuaje?
Nilikuwa na sarakasi wiki.
It's been a crazy week.
I was so impressed that I hope we'll find time to discuss the pathetic and desperate attempt to try and sanitize the BBI bill
in Parliament.
And I'm sure we'll come to details on that. But
sure.
What I think surprised me is how some of the senators, I followed Murkomen's arguments. Actually, he was just arguing Punguza Mizigo to try and defeat BBI. So yeah, we set the pace, but they're following now. Otherwise, yeah, the week has been a bit dramatic. As usual, people are very in a state of apathy. The effects of coronavirus economically, socially are real. And, I think Kenyans are still we are in pain.
Yeah.
We're in pain. And sadly, we don't seem to see any direction or stewardship towards some solution or relief for Kenyans. So that's my quick reflection on the state of the nation this week.
Okay. Mambo pia umeona COVID in India. Meleta shida sana.
Yes.
We still have passengers coming in the other day. They gave us 72 hours.
Yes.
So I don't know if Corona was going to take a break.
What they are saying now, I mean, if you are to really try and manage this pandemic, you have to vaccinate at least 70% of the world population.
70%.
So we are talking about maybe 6 point something billion people who must be vaccinated for us to be safe. So far, 50% of the vaccines have been taken by rich countries. Yeah. So as in Africa and the rest of the world, this pandemic and this virus keeps on mutating, new variants after new variant. And so the vaccines have been ordered, I think, 3 point something billion so far, but a lot of that gone to the rich countries.
In Kenya, you're not even talking about 70% of the population, 30% by 2023.
Yeah, and people are dropping dead. Doctors are saying, at least maybe now, I think, like I said last week, is a doctor friend from the Nairobi hospital who was saying there's a little bit of relief now. They used to wait for like 5 days for somebody to get a bed. Now at least it's come down. But still, the vaccination is not reaching the average Kenyan. What will have been good to see as we manage this pandemic is even with the closure of the 5 counties, will have been beautiful to see mass vaccination in the 5 counties.
Going on, yes.
Mass testing in the 5 counties, so that then you protect it. Because if these are the super spreaders of the virus, then we needed to see what measures we are putting in place to tame the possible spread.
Okay. All right. LAIBUTA.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
This is your first time on the tackle.
Kabisa, asante sana.
Karibu sana.
Tungemkaribisha na chai.
Amesema yeye amekuja na take away. Amekuja na take away. So jambo.
Salama sana.
Nakupa nafasi ya kusalimia wananchi kwanza sababu yeye ni mgeni.
Asante, hamjambo.
Introduce yourself.
I'm glad to be here. It's been an interesting week, especially on the legal front. The issues of BBI, the charade, they call it the charade that's happening in Parliament, trying to show people that there's some form of debate that can happen. But then at the end of the day, we know Parliament just has a ceremonial role. We have the issue of the CJ. We now have Lady Justice Martha Koome, who was nominated by JSC. It's a good moment. However, there are a lot of legal questions and political questions that have been asked about, especially about process, not about her herself, but about process. And I think that's something we'll ponder about. And of course, mambo ya COVID. Unfortunately, especially our all elder members of society are bearing the brunt of this COVID. I mean, last week somebody buried both parents. I mean, it's quite sad, and I think our response on issues to do with vaccines and all that is horrible. I also read somewhere that the Indian strain has been found in Uganda. That's something worrying, really worrying. And you see now India, what they've decided, because it's they have started shutting down any dissent or any information criticizing the government. Wow. So at some point now, like in China, you couldn't know what is happening because the government had shut down social media discussions. So now India is doing the same. They have forced Twitter, Facebook to take down any content that is critical of the government. So at some point, we might not have any information about what really is happening. But I'm glad to be here. I have my president here of the LSK, though that is debatable. Some people might say I should have added suspended, or embarking. But I'm glad to be here.
Randa Siege. Rise, Jambo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, si Jambo Bitok.
It's good to see you. This is also your first time on the tackle.
Yeah. I had one of your one of your biggest supporters saying that they're expecting an uppercut.
Yeah. You are a dispenser of undercuts.
Yeah.
You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you for hosting me in this show. I think this week has been quite eventful. 3 things have come out outstanding. The appointment of the selection panel to undertake the recruitment of commissioners of IBC. Look, 10 years after the promulgation of the Constitution, it was expected that we'll have made substantial progress towards transparency and accountability in making these appointments. But you see, there is a determined effort by players outside the permissible framework of this appointment. There's infiltration insofar as the religious organizations are concerned. Political parties claim not to be well represented in the choices that were made. You saw the other day the government forcing an appointee through the LSK to sit in that selection panel. Well, we also have BBI being tabled in Parliament. I mean, not more than a month ago, the President of the Republic of Kenya decided to suspend the sessions of Parliament and the county assemblies in a very unprecedented move, because the President does not have power to take such actions so far as the other arms of government are concerned. But, well, Parliament sat to consider the BBI bill. Surprisingly, many of those who did not receive well the views that had been presented against this bill, in particular the unconstitutionality of the entire process, the unconstitutionality of the content of the bill itself, and emphasis can be laid on the creation of the 70 constituencies, a function that has been given to IBC under the Constitution, seem to have seen the light and are now trying to make attempts to amend the bill. Yet those who have the benefit of proper legal understanding will tell you cannot amend a bill that emanates from a popular initiative, assuming that this is a popular initiative, which I really doubt whether it is, because so much public funds and intervention from state players has been seen in this process. And then to cap it all, the drama at the JSC.
It's a movie scene.
Yeah, we are treated to
Theater of
public
dreams.
interview where serious questions are raised, where candidates are asked to respond to those questions. And some of these interviews took between 3 to 5 hours, very lengthy. And then without even indicating to us the criteria that is used to arrive at a suitable candidate, we're told, fine, behold, here is the nominee for Chief Justice. Where the transparency and accountability? It's like saying President EKURU and Mwalimu Olez here can engage in a boxing context here for 2 hours. Then you tell us, can we wait for 2 days? Then we'll tell you who won.
Who boxed the other?
Who won the boxing match.
All right.
Yeah, so these are some of the things that are permitted.
That we'll get into.
The events of this week.
So when you come back, I'll get to you. Acha tusikie State of the Nation kutoka Mwananchi. Niko na mtu. Jambo. Good morning.
Bwana Gerald, habari yako?
Salama sana, habari asubuhi.
Mzuri, hapa ni usiku. Mimi naitwa Maina na
usiku pale Marekani.
Mwanzo ningependa kushukuru sana kwa kunipa hii nafasi, alafu nirudi niwasalimu bwana EKURU AUKOT area pagang. Edogo bwana. That is my village mate. Emamu ngate bwana, emamu ngate.
Mgekuyu anaongea Kiturkana.
Msalimu pia Mugambi.
Bitok, that's the original language. It's the language from the cradle of humankind.
What do you say?
I know, that is almost like the language of God. Msalimu Mugambi, alafu nirudi msalimu HAVI. You know, those are very great legal minds hapo. And, you know, mimi kama mwananchi wa kawaida ambaye sijui sheria sana, I can only say, you know, most obliged. Sijui nasikia wakisema most obliged ama most guided ama. Anyway, so kitu mimi tu as mwananchi wa kawaida kitu ninasema ni kwamba I watched yesterday somebody being grilled by the parliamentary select committee on the COVID billionaire. Lakini kuna watu wanachezea wa Kenya.
Nani ya?
How is that? Huyu jamaa alikuwa anaitongo mradhe na anakuwa na fujo sana, I don't know why. How do you say that is how the Somalis do? Is that the standard operating procedure? Mulisikia kisema kitu kama hiyo. You know, I don't know, some very shady deals, and I'm like, is that really a government that is elected by the people? Is that the standard operating procedures of how things should be done? You know, sometimes tunaangalia watu wanaendelea kufanya vitu kubwa kubwa na nchi yetu kama Kenya. You know, tunalia saizi hakuna vaccine. I'm very saddened to know that, you know, there are people who are dying in our party vaccine. Na sisi tuko na capability ya kutengeneza vaccine, lakini kwa sababu ya wizi na mambo yanafanyika, pesa inapotezwa inaenda kwingine, and then tunaanza kulalamika. Watu wamesonga mbele, wanafanya mambo kubwa, sisi tunaelect government kubwa. Ninaona saizi wanatengeneza budget ya mabilioni, but how much of that will be itakuwa spread out to the to the country for improvement of services and stuff like that? It's a shame, but let me tell you, nilisikia ule MP wa Kikuyu akisema one time, they will not have peace. They will never see peace. If that is what they are doing when people are dying, it's very sad. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my brother. Salimia watu wa New Jersey.
Nitawasalimu sana wote, na najua kuna Wakenya wengi sana wanasikiza hapa.
Kuna Wakenya wapo wanasikiza. Pole sana, there's some guys ambao nimekata simu zao, so you can call in. Ndugu yangu, kuwa na usiku mwana, lakini usitoke kwenye program. Please hang in there so that we can have a conversation together.
No problem.
Don't disappear. Haya, asante sana. Kama ulikuwa nimekata simu yako, nimekata simu kadhaa, karibu 12. Nimekata simu yako 779-800-010, lakini nitawapa tu dakika 5 peke yake. Hello, jambo. Good morning. Hello, State of the Nation.
Jambo Gerald.
Jambo, habari asubuhi.
Salama sana. This is Kalia calling on behalf of Menokwisha village.
Chairman Menokwisha Kettle Deep. Good morning.
Niko salama, mjambo.
Hali ikoje pale?
Tupo salama, niko Eldoret mjini.
Election mmefanya Kettle Deep?
Bado
ama mnapiga Undertaker kama huko juu?
Kuna mtu alipeleka petition alikimbia koti kusimamisha.
Haya, niambie dadi haraka.
So talking about the nation, I would start with I don't know, I've never might be involved myself in checking other countries, but then I don't think there's a country that markets its inefficiencies kama Kenya. Sisi watu na market yetu. Yani we are inefficient, then we go ahead and also try to market it. So you can imagine a parliament sitting, a special sitting, not to discuss matters za kutugusia kama wananchi when there are such times ambapo watu wanakufa. And then you call a special sitting, alafu unajua wewe inacheza, wewe unaiweka kwa national broadcaster pale, alafu mnaitupa pale pia YouTube. And it's all over, watu wana watch, and the things we are watching are things that are an issue, because the other day we were being told that some county assemblies even will discuss, BBI 1 or BBI 2. There are different, we have not sorted out a lot of issues, but we are actually concentrating on a document that might not haitusaidii chochote at this particular time as an emergency. At the same time, this is the same government that is telling us that by 2023, usijua atakuwa amevaccinate less than 0.5% ya Wakenya. And we are seated somewhere trying to discuss something that tujui hata kama tutafika huko to be alive to even see the fruits of that particular document.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, might be watching yesterday, I didn't watch a lot of it, but I watched part of it, Murada akigrilliwa pale.
Yes.
The way the guy is answering questions, you wonder if this is a country even. The way the panel itself behaves, the characters in that panel. I don't want to mention names, but hata wale wenye wako pale ndani trying to get facts from this particular person and trying to get where the truth is, are not, the questions they're asking tells a lot of things about ni maswali ambayo they'll not bring anything ya kutusaidia in future, because we have seen so many such forums, watu wanakuja hapo anauliza maswali, at the end of it all will get nothing. And so hata hii amrada ukiangalia from day one, there's nothing you get out of that. It's just a waste of public resources, and there's nothing will materialize into anything.
Okay, asante sana chama. Sawa. Na usitoke kwa broadcast, tulia hapo. Jambo, good morning.
Good morning, Gerald.
State of the Nation, simu ya mwisho. Ali koje mahali uliko?
My name is Victor Tsuma and I'm calling from Kericho.
Yes, Victor.
Please say hi to the panel and this legal mind.
Umesalimika?
So I want to ask the legal scholars to really help us understand and constitute Article 257.8 of the Constitution, whereby it says that Parliament will consider the bill. Can Parliament amend the bill? Can they really amend the bill, or their work is only to be a conveyor belt?
Okay.
Secondly, second question is to HAVI. I want to ask him if really the judiciary is a co-equal, or it was intended to be a subservient of the other arms of government. Because if we really look at the recruitment of the CJ, the president or the executive had a higher shot in deciding who is going to be our CJ. And I want to applaud him for being for championing for judiciary, because in any case, in a despotic government or a government that does not obey the court orders, the rule of law and constitutionalism, judiciary will always be our refuge for the common man. I want to thank him for being true. Thank you.
Okay, asante sana, kuwa na siku njema. Hii ilikuwa simu ya mwisho kwa State of the Nation ya Mwananchi, lakini tukifika pale saa 3 tutafungua bunge la Mwananchi ili tuzungumze kuhusu ile mambo. Wataka kwanza nawe rais. Naam. Umesema jina yako tuanze na embattled ama tuanze na Andasiege ama tuanze na suspended ama tuanze na aliyekuwa. What's going on at LSK?
Well, LSK seems to be facing the same attacks that have faced other institutions that are given the oversight role.
Okay.
Insofar as matters of public interest are concerned. And it's not new. You've seen what has happened to KOTU. Basically, KOTU is as good as an organization that is headed, quote unquote, by a state officer. Look at NAT, for instance. It's been emasculated so that teachers do not have their say. It does not therefore surprise that there is a determined effort to ensure that the Law Society of Kenya does not perform its role as given by the Constitution and statute. And you see, over the years, the Law Society of Kenya has played a fundamental role in putting together the fabric that maintains a constitutional democracy, in expanding the space for the Bill of Rights. And when we took over office last year on the 24th of March 2020, we heralded a new dawn where accountability, which had not been seen, I would say, in the last 5 years, became something that was obvious, not just to lawyers, but to the entire Kenyan population. And we've done considerably well towards that end, because we started with the litigation to challenge the curfew and the manner in which it was being enforced, with tremendous loss of life, destruction of property, curtailment of rights of citizens, and we got a court order. And then within a few months thereafter, we were able to take disciplinary action against the Attorney General and the Solicitor General for their failure to give the President of the Republic of Kenya good advice so far as the appointment of the 41, now 40 judges is concerned. And then towards the end of last year, you remember, we petitioned the Chief Justice to dissolve, to advise the dissolution of Parliament. For what reason? Because Parliament had failed to enact laws that were intended to implement the two-third gender principle. And this issue had been pending on the desk of the Chief Justice for about 2 years. So it was at the behest of the Law Society that action was taken. And it's a matter of public knowledge that many parliamentarians did not find this to be a comfortable situation. And if you look at it from that panoramic view, you understand why there's been heightened interest in the leadership of the Law Society. Decisions of the Law Society being countermanded in what may be perceived to be a division within the Council of the Law Society, but in actual fact, it's state interference. But overall, I think a majority of the membership of the Law Society of Kenya are comfortable, they're happy with what we're doing. Many Kenyans of all walks of life appreciate the pivotal role that we've played so far. Some will want to say that the president is suspended. Some will want to say that the president is embattled. Let's start with the word embattled. Of course, the president is embattled. But is he embattled by his membership? No, the president is not embattled by his membership.
You embattled by ghosts from power.
No, my members are here.
And they have not embattled you.
And we are loyal.
They have not tackled you.
You can see like President EKURU, Malemu, Olezi, and they're happy. So the person who is embattling us is this monster called Deep State. An acronym that has been coined to define certain characters in government who wish to control every facet of people's life. But this is the nature of leadership, because if you do not receive resistance, if you do not receive criticism, if what you do is not put to account, then it means you're not performing. Yes.
Okay. All right. Kuna mtu hapa amesema the parliament wanted to close, you ended up having tea there. He said, tulikuwa tumekuja tu kunywa chai. They trapped you with tea. Kama ya Sonkorea, unajua Sonkorea alisema alienda pale kwa mlima akapewa kakitu. Were you trapped with tea, Bwana President? Atatuambia kama kulikuwa na mandazi, lakini nasikia aliekea kwa mtego ya chai.
Si mtego. Unajua tulinyakua bunge. Unajua kama
kidogo chai kafika.
Kama wewe ni mwanajeshi na umevamia sehemu fulani, mahali pa kwanza pa kukamata ni mahali penye kuna lishe.
Unaenda thermos.
Unaenda store.
Unaenda kwa chikoni. Na si kweli kwamba walikupandia chai. Hizo wenyewe vilikuwa chai. Na bado tarudi tena.
So baada ya kunywa chai nini ilifanyika? No,
baada ya kunywa chai tulidhihirisha kwamba sasa sisi wenyewe kama Wakenya tuko na uwezo. Watu tulisema kwamba tunaenda kuoccupy parliament. Na tulipoenda bunge, wale jamaa wote walitimka mbio. Wako. Tukaenda kuongea na clerk, akatutembeza. Yes, alipomaliza kutembeza sema sisi tunataka tukunywe chai. Tukunywe chai. Na sioni makosa yote kunywa chai. Sio hapa kwako leo sikwenda kunywa chai. But more fundamentally, it must be understood the reason as to why we haven't taken any progressive action towards occupying parliament and evicting parliamentarians who, until the time we're speaking now, are trespassers, is because a court order was made staying the implementation of the advisory by the Chief Justice to the President to dissolve Parliament. And being law-abiding citizens, we must comply with that order. We'll await the outcome of the court. If the court rules in favor of Parliament and the Attorney General that Parliament should not be dissolved, then that will be the case. But if the court says the decision by the Chief Justice has to be enforced, then verily we'll go back and tell the parliamentarians it's now time for you
to pack and go.
Go and seek a fresh mandate from the people.
Okay. Daktari EKURU, wamesema ni member. Are you happy? Do you have tea?
No, sikwenda chai. I think president.
What do you think is happening at Alaska?
But
as a member,
but let's from the state of the nation. Yes. I want to pick one thing that people are trying to sweep under the carpet.
Please.
The grilling of Murathe in Parliament. First of all, has Murathe ever been discharged as a bankrupt? This is a fundamental question that people are forgetting. Sometimes back, Murathe actually filed for bankruptcy. And therefore, even the association that now he can actually trade with the state or with the state operator, I think something needs to be clarified. How does this person who had filed for bankruptcy now, trading with the state the billions of Kenya shillings that, is being grilled for? So that's a fundamental question. And of course, a caller there raised a very pertinent issue about the parliamentarians themselves. I think it's right to say that we no longer have a parliament. Parliament was long emasculated. It's become part of the executive. In fact, as I've said many times, I do not see any point why we should refer to parliament in Kenya as Senate or National Assembly. We should have just decided to allocate one of those segments, either National Assembly or Senate, to Uhuru and Raila respectively, so that then we don't need the 416 parliamentarians. Because what they are doing, they are actually not representing the people that sent them there. They are not even calling the government to account or the executive to account. They are not even passing laws that are really supposed to make our lives better. Now, so that's what I gathered from the State of the Nation. But now to the issue of our embattled president at the LSK.
Suspended.
The truth for the matter is this. And I'm talking from experience.
Yes.
I've been a council member at the time when Okongo Mogeni was the chairman of the LSK. The truth for the matter is there's a lot of interference in the running of LSK. Unfortunately, even we as lawyers, we have actually lost in our professional ethics. If you look at, for example, even during campaign times, we've become worse than political parties. You know, and what President HAVI has been trying to do is try and bring some change, some drastic, radical change. And the state, as we know in Kenya, the government has never really wanted the country to change. So even when you have a society like the Law Society of Kenya, which, by the way, has a statutory mandate, you know, on matters governance, it's an obligation. So when a LSK tries to bring certain changes that will impact positively in this country, that interference by the state
is not appreciated.
Yeah, it's not appreciated, and that interference is obviously there, and so it's not a new thing, and this is because we've had very lackluster leadership in this country for the longest time. We have had government institutions that are not functioning. I mean, just to give you a very simple example, yesterday I was in a virtual court session defending a client, and DPP, noting that there was no evidence to prosecute my client, actually vacated, terminated the prosecution of my client. And I made a very simple application and asked the magistrate, please order EACC to refund my client his cash bail. You know, I went to the EACC office and my client was asked to address court whether I can collect the money on his behalf. And he said yes, and the magistrate actually ordered as such. I went to EACC offices. There's an inspector called Ndungu. He kept me there for 2 hours just to give me back a cash bail. And what emerged is that he was saying, no, we've not been told by EACC. I tried to educate this policeman about the law, that who has the authority to actually prosecute any criminal charges. It is the DPP. Once DPP has dropped charges against anyone, EACC has no business interfering with whether my client should get back his cash bill or not. You know, I sat there for 2 hours, and I remember at the end of the day, I asked these guys, do you really think that now you've served me as just an ordinary member of the public? You've kept me here for 2 hours. I'm the only one you've been engaging. Who else have you served? So the truth for the matter is, in this country, the government never want change. They never want Kenyans to change for better. Okay. And that's why I'm not surprised why LSK is being fought. We know there's interference on the mandate of the LSK, and some of us really are very, very unhappy with what's happening. Okay. But I think I want to encourage President HAVI. You need to hang in there. We must make sure that it doesn't matter whether they're interfering or not, but at least go on record that you've told them this is the right thing. Yeah. And I think that's what we should all do as Kenyans going forward.
I think it's important that you stick by your voice and you keep speaking it until people get it enough that this is what you mean. Because
and also there's disrespect.
Yeah.
I mean, if for example, President HAVI, he's the president of the LSK. So he chairs all the council meetings. So at what point, like I'm looking at the question of nomination of this representative to the IEBC selection panel. If the president of the LSK cannot have a say, honestly, who else should have a say?
Swalanyeti. Hi, Olez.
Yes, sir.
As a member.
Yeah.
You're the one who is calling your president suspended. And you're saying you're happy with LSK. What's going on?
You see, for me, I'm actually disappointed because there are various issues that have been raised. We have two factions at the LSK Council. We voted for these people.
Yeah.
With a lot of confidence that Section 4 of the Law Society Act says rule of law constitutionalism is the role of the LSK.
Okay.
Then what happens? the same questions LSK Council is asking out there about due process, about following the rule of law, are the same questions being asked about council. Mm-hmm. There are questions about procedures in council. How are certain decisions made? Whether by because both teams are suspended, depends how you look at it. One is alleged to have been suspended by an SGM. There are questions about the process of that SGM. The other faction of the president is said to have been suspended by these 8 members. The question is, did they arrive that through a due process? So, for example, if you're asking questions about integrity, about due process, LSK, we have to clean our house first. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what is the reason LSK exists? Section 4. So whether HAVI is suspended or not, whether he's embattled or not, is immaterial. Whether the other council members feel that they were the ones who control the society is immaterial. The question is, are there fundamental rule of law and constitutionalism issues that are being raised out there? Because, for example, let's look at the nomination of the CJ. One faction of the LSK congratulates the nominee. The other faction asks very key questions.
Yes.
And you see, to me, it doesn't matter. HAVI can be a farmer in Mumias. HAVI can go back to Mumias today and be a farmer. Let's assume the statement HAVI made yesterday was made by MUGAMBI, LAIBUTA, myself. And let's assume the court cases that were there in the High Court about the process were litigated. Because you remember, at the High Court, there were questions relating to the commissioners of JSC. Are they suitable to sit there? Is it procedural? Some are said to hold 2 public offices. There's also now the question of who becomes the chairperson. There are litigants who ask these questions. And these are not questions you can just sweep under the rug. And it doesn't matter whether they're being asked by a suspended president or the suspended 8. Anybody can ask these questions. And they are fundamental questions. Then there is this question about how did they arrive at the decision for the nominee. To be honest, the nominee has the experience. She's worked in civil society. She's been a litigator. She's been a judge for more than 18 years. She's qualified. By and large, she's qualified. But then there's that question of due process. How did they arrive at this decision? Look at it this way. During the interviews, they asked the judges especially about decisions that they had made before. How did you arrive at this decision? Why did you arrive at this decision? Why did you hold a court session outside the court hours? What gave you authority to do that? All right? Other nominees are being asked, you represented certain clients, quote unquote, that may have been of unquestionable character. Some were asked about their their public service experience. They litigated again, they prosecuted people who were fighting for the second liberation. So, Professor Makau Mutua, when he was interviewed for CJ around 4 or 5 years ago, he lost. Then Justice Maraga was appointed. He asked some question. It's okay, fine. I'm not the CJ, but there are some fundamental questions that we need to respond to. One of the questions is, yes, fine, you've appointed the gentleman. Tell us how you got into that decision. One, using the access to information provision of the Constitution, provide with us minutes of deliberation, provide us with the marking sheets. How many marks did each commissioner give to every candidate? And if the best candidate won, well and good, according to the marks. But if the best candidate who got the most marks was not proposed for nomination, you need to respond to why. Because, of course, we interview people in our establishments, and sometimes the candidate who gets the highest marks, you never employ them because of 1 or 2 reasons. So that is understandable. But for JSC to take candidates to task about the integrity, the due process of their thought process, JSC should do the same and give us that information. We reach candidate X because of this was our thought process, these were the marks, this was the best candidate, so we chose them. Or this was candidate number 2 and we considered A, B, C, D. So these are the questions being asked by different people. And it doesn't matter whether it's HAVI asking it or not. And that brings us back to the LSK question. why is LSK thinking about personalities? Because now it's just become about HAVI. If HAVI raises a question about constitutionalism and the rule of law, we start attacking HAVI. All right? If the other 8 raise an issue of rule of law and constitutionalism, we attack them for who they are. So it is disappointing that LSK has allowed itself, the LSK Council has allowed itself to be in a situation where now it has factions that represent interests that compromise its Section 4 responsibility. Okay. I don't know how we can sort this out, but as a member, I'm disappointed because there are fundamental issues. The issues of BBI, the issue of the issue of suspension of parliament. That's not about HAVI, that's not about the 8. It's an issue of we have a constitution for 10 years. Why aren't you implementing 1, 2, 3?
Okay. You know, Bitok, let's be brutally honest, like we like to be in this show. I think we are just dishonest as a people. As Kenyans, we're very dishonest. Some of the things that we put in our constitution, for example, things to do with accountability, national values, whatever, they are just decoration so far. If you take what's happening in context, why is there a problem when HAVI asks for accountability or somebody asks of JSC account for the process? So it means even we Kenyans, you know, I can't remember who exactly said these words, but you know, you see, a constitution is just but a piece of paper. Yeah. If you don't breathe life into it, as in if you don't live the values that we have espoused therein, then it's as useless as the paper it's even written on. So the question, for example, of JSC, this is just a basic call for accountability. Tell us the process you followed. You know, I remember when we did, when I chaired the first IEBC selection panel in 2011, we published our report and we even published the formula we use in arriving at the first 13 that we forwarded to Parliament for vetting and maybe for President to pick the 9. I don't know why this JSC process is so secretive. After all, I can now see double standards. There seems to be a rush to pick a CJ, but there is no rush to appoint the 40 judges now. As a matter of fact, you can even say maybe President Uhuru is responsible for even the death of one of the judges, because this delay, could have made, yeah. But I see that, and remember, the president is actually represented by 2 of his own nominees, actually 3, the Attorney General, yes, and then I think he picks 2 other people.
Correct.
Yeah, a man and a woman. So he has 3 representatives. So even if you go back to the story of the 40 judges now, who he has refused to swear in, and they are saying, oh, some of these people are of questionable character. Why were these issues not raised at the interview stage? Why? I mean, the president has the machinery. You can use the deep state, the intelligence arms of this government, to actually raise those issues at the... If they are of questionable character, some of those judges are actually right now sitting judges of the High Court. So why didn't we raise this? So we are very dishonest as a country, and I think the more we brutally talk to each other about our bad manners, the better for this country to change. Because even this rule of law thing we're trying to follow. And yes, like Mugambi, I really wish that the LSK can put its act together, and maybe President HAVI may want to consider even a mediation. Call some of us who've been there before, we put people together and see whether we can move the society.
You cannot talk when you can
because
punch.
We cannot afford not to have a proper leadership at the LSK. Otherwise, we'll be joining the shenanigan that is the country politically right now.
Okay, President. Now that we've already delved into the CJ issue and what the JSC is doing, trying to appoint the CJ, you raised questions yesterday that I think Les has already picked up on. What are the issues that you have with the process?
Well, first and foremost, let's not apportion blame on the part of the nominee Chief Justice, Judge of the Court of Appeal, Martha Koome. I think Martha Koome is in the unfortunate position that former President Mwai Kibaki was on 1st of January 2008, where he said, look, I was given a certificate. I was told I'm the one who won. So the person who ought to account for the process then was the Electoral Commission. So
ABC.
Yes, similarly.
It was the ACK.
Yes, similarly now, the entity we are questioning is the Judicial Service Commission. Because the Judicial Service Commission is supposed to guarantee accountability, transparency, and efficiency in the judiciary. You cannot subject candidates to a public interview, invite views from members of the public, make us believe that there is really an exercise to evaluate the competence and suitability of all these candidates, and then just throw a name at us. And you see, as President EKURU has said, the Constitution was not intended to be a decoration. And those are the issues that we have raised in the statement. Today, we are writing a letter to the Judicial Service Commission, giving them a 7-day ultimatum to give the score, to give proceedings, to give an indicator as to how they arrived at this nominee for Chief Justice. And if they do not do that, we will take the next available step, because it is quite evident that the court process, in particular through the High Court, is one that may not achieve the desired results of accountability and transparency substantially because of the unconventional behavior by the Court of Appeal of taking cases that are before the High Court before they are determined, usurping jurisdiction as if the Court of Appeal is the court of first instance, and determining the matter. Ask yourself, for instance, what will happen to the petitions before the High Court? What will happen to the Court of Appeal appeals? Because by the time they're being heard, the Chief Justice will have been approved by the National Assembly, sworn in, and is in office. That is not what we intended this process to be. Then let me delve a little bit on the Law Society of Kenya. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues. They're very legitimate concerns. But there is something that I would like to request them and the entire membership of the Law Society to take serious cognizance of. You see, whenever we go for elections, many of us do not interrogate the competences, the wherewithal of these candidates. Sorry to say, many of these candidates come and beguile you because of cheap makeup and false hair. And you end up voting for them. Yet these people...
So, President, are you saying we are voting for beauty?
President is accusing us of using other considerations to vote for candidates.
Are you voting with optics?
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
We're doing optical voting.
And especially these characters of the male gender, you understand? They don't want to interrogate in depth the competences of these individuals. But I must emphasize one thing, and Mwalimu EKURU acted for me when I went to court after he'd been barred from running in 2017. There is a calibration of the categories of the official of the Law Society. For you to be president or vice president, you must either have been a former council member or qualified to be a Supreme Court judge. Now, look, you've given me council members who have not attained the same qualifications as the vice president and myself. Yet some of them want to exercise the powers of president. You understand?
Yes.
I wouldn't term this as insubordination. It's outright stupidity. Because every organization must have a captain. And if you are in that organization, you don't want to be led, then there is a big problem. Another fundamental issue is what I've classified as financial vulnerability. You understand? People without a backbone. Not poor, but predisposed to making decisions when enticed, either with a gift or money. Another conundrum that
Democracy.
The leadership of the Law Society is what we call intellectual elasticity. These individuals do not want to make decisions based upon the analysis of the law and evaluation of facts. It will surprise you whenever we're considering very serious issues of law. For instance, as to who should appoint the chair of the election boards. You know, under the regulations, the chair of the elections board is to be appointed by the chair of the committee on senior counsel. It's there in the regulations. Then you'll find these characters telling you, no, Mr. President, we need to vote between Fred Ojambo and Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. They forget 4 months before they made a resolution ratifying the constitution of the Committee of Senior Counsel with Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi as chair. So tell me, Malim, how would you deal with these people? Are these issues you can take to mediation? I think foolishness is not an issue that you can take to mediation. Perhaps it's an issue that you need to take back to school.
There's something that is mentioned. They say the stomach is a very bad
wrong in LSK.
Yes.
Exactly
you are embattled and you say that the stomach is not a very good advisor. Where you embattled also?
What has gone wrong in LSK is also what has gone wrong in our country in the choice of leadership. We have commercialized our pursuit for these positions. And when people commercialize pursuit for this position, once they are there, they begin then to recoup that which they spent. You see, for example, this issue of money, Prezo, is not new. When I was in the council under the leadership of Okongo Mogeni then, we were funded by World Bank. And one of the issues that came up was, how was this money spent? There's always a question around money. And I saw your problem also started when you started asking about accountability for certain amounts of money. And these are a very fundamental question, because this is not HAVI's money. These are the money for the members.
Exactly.
So what's wrong in asking that? So unfortunately, and President, that's why we are saying we need to put our house in order. Because of our mandate, which LAIBUTA has spoken about in Section 4 of the LSK Act, we tend to lose that huge mandate in the country if we ourselves are not organized. Because these politicians who are messing up our country today through these bad laws are happy when we guys who are in the know the law, know matters constitutionalism, are not criticizing them. They are very happy. Yeah. So long as we sit on the fence, they can go on ravaging this country and destroying it for all they care. So I think for me, it's very, very, very important. And yes, you mentioned a very important point. Hardly these days do we even look at the competencies and qualities of the individuals who can be our leaders. But this is the same thing. It's a reflection of what we're seeing in the political leadership in this country.
All different.
And many times you really begin to wonder, can we even say as a country that we are actually educated, or we just physically attended these institutions of higher learning and left with just certificates?
I think some of these people just trespassed by a law school. And it's quite evident in the manner in which they express themselves, the manner in which they make decisions. And it will surprise you. Yesterday we had a meeting with the management of UNDP, and for the first time UNDP tells us that they'd given the Law Society of Kenya a grant of 20 million towards public interest litigation. Monies that were disbursed to the Law Society last year in August. The Vice President, who is the chair of the Staff, Budget and Finance Committee, is not aware. I'm not aware. Now, this thing is
How was the money received then?
Exactly. And then if you interrogate the process further, you realize that the monies have been banked in what we call IAC account. International Arbitration Center accounts. The monies that are being refunded to you on account of the contributions you made towards the South Sea project. Yes, we have had the development levy, which was intended to develop Gitanga Road. I mean, you've paid that money. Yeah. In my estimation, based upon the demography of lawyers, we ought to be having about 400 million now, sufficient enough to break ground and build the framework of a 6-storied Wakili Plaza. We do not have that money. In fact, what is remaining is 30 million. What? Now, when you raise these concerns, those who have preceded me in office, those who are in the secretariat, those who have benefited from this money, take very strong positions to ensure that we don't have an audit. And I can tell you, EKURU, on the 23rd of July 2020, it is you guys who demanded an audit. It's not me.
That's true.
I remember. Why don't you ask yourself, why is it that the audit is not being undertaken? It's been resisted. You understand?
No, I remember attending that webinar. I remember attending that webinar, and yes, and you gave me the chance to speak about this. But I was shocked also. Some of the most senior lawyers said, no, there is no need for audit. Why? If we are running our own businesses individually in our own law firms, we always audit.
And Mwalimu, are you surprised that it is those senior lawyers that are acting for the Secretariat and my 8 colleagues in the numerous litigation in court around the audit and the removal of the secretary? It should be a matter of concern, because you can't take 400 million by yourself from the Secretariat of the Law Society.
Not take. Let's just call it what it is. We
Stealing.
can't steal.
As I said, one of the biggest, it's disappointing that there are these factions. For example, the question about financial probity.
Yes.
It is immaterial whether it's HAVI, whether it's EKURU, whether it's BITOC. Who is the president? All right? Because HAVI, his time is almost up. By March next year, we will have another president. That question will still...
No, we're planning to suspend the law.
He wants to pull up.
You want to put in us, or you want to farmajo us?
He wants to farmajo us.
Chicken down.
He wants to BBI.
You want to build bridges.
The point BITOC I want to make is that during EKURU's time, EKURU was council member, I think before I became an advocate of the High Court. I've now practiced for almost 12 years. And those questions of financial accountability are still being asked all these years when HAVI is president of the LSK. So what does that tell us? LSK has failed in many ways. Because the same questions, let's look at, for example, the issue of KEMSA. How will LSK go now to Parliament and say, as LSK, we want to know how money about COVID was used? But then somebody will ask, come on, you guys, you can hardly do an audit within the organization. As LSK, we'll go and say, JSC, you're not telling us about process. LSK lacks the council lacks that collegiate responsibility to decide on issues.
Okay.
So how then do we as a council, you don't even have the moral basis to go ask these questions out there. Okay. 10 years of the Constitution, we can't have transparency in the council. 10 years, we can't have collective responsibility of the council. 10 years, LSK proposed to either appoint or not appoint people to represent LSK in critical constitutional bodies and procedurally. We are not being told how are these people appointed or how are they not appointed. All right? The president sends a notice, a statement at 1 p.m. The other faction sends another statement at 2 p.m. It's all a farce. It's all chaos. So, so that thing is that LSK, unfortunately, let's look at the issues. That's all I say. It doesn't matter whether HAVI is suspended or not. The question are the issues being raised going to the Constitution?
Before we go to the issues,
yes.
President HAVI raised a very important question. Do we interrogate the people we pick as our leaders in terms of competence, qualities, and values?
No, that I accept. We do not.
You see, if you put in a cow in charge of an institution and then tell that cow, now look at the issues, is there capacity to even look at the issues? I think for me, the fundamental question for us as lawyers now, we need to go back to the drawing board. How are we picking our leaders? Who are we picking? Are these people do they even have the capacity? Even just to communicate alone, because communication for us as lawyers also is a key issue. Okay. So if we pick in cows and mbuzi and expect them to govern,
aya tusonge kwa LSK.
LSK has been represented by many people in many boards, they don't come back to LSK. Like, for example, the LSK representative at the JSC should come back to members and tell members,
yes,
this is our nominee
for this and this reasons.
And as your representative, this is how we arrived at this conclusion.
You should even order Kamkuji with us.
Unless, do you know what?
Yes.
It will surprise you that our male member representative of the Judicial Service Commission scored a top lawyer in this country at 42%. So if the president's lawyer, a senior counsel, can score 42% in interviews for Chief Justice, what will I, the poor pleb, score. Now, then you begin to ask yourself, or you must of necessity ask yourself, whose interest is that representative representing in the JSC? Look, we were supposed to have elections with the female member representative on the 25th of March. Why did we not have those elections? Because your 8 friends, through proxies, went to court to stop that election. You understand? Now, the matter is before the Court of Appeal. An appeal was filed on the 4th of March. To date, the Court of Appeal has not seen the propriety of determining that appeal. Why? Because we have vested interest. Let's go back to financial probity. Oles, are you aware that your 8 friends who do not have the power and authority to call for a council meeting hold a minimum of 4 council meetings per month, demanding allowances
at our cost
10,000? You understand?
Yes.
As we speak right now, I've never collected a single cent from the Law Society of Kenya. As we speak right now, I've spent a total of 10 million of my own money. You understand? Towards the welfare of the society. I travel to go and see sick advocates. I travel to go and bury advocates. I swipe my card for you guys to have a CPD webinar. You understand? All these things. Yet you've encumbered me with these characters who do not even have a law firm, who have never set foot in a court of law, and you want me to negotiate with them and ensure that they see sense. You know, sense, to use Marete's word, it's like knowledge. You either have it or you don't have it.
So do we have a vote of no confidence on the whole lot? Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, for 2 years, it's this charade.
It's not an issue of charade.
Because, for example, the issue of JSC, it is so surprising that we don't have a female.
In fact, I'm sending LSK an invoice after this.
We don't have a female representative at JSC. You know how tragic that is? It is so tragic, and it is being undermined by people within the council.
And we claim to be a professional body.
We claim to be the rule
you
of
should
law
expect my
advocates.
invoice. You should expect an invoice in the evening. Right. Wacha tuingie. That's pale YouTube. Some good morning, GB, and the panelists. Looking forward to hear them call it as it is. Good morning, Team Tackle. That is Joel Kibet. Keep quiet. We talk says good morning. Say hi to the panelists. Martin Sydney. Good morning. Gerald, pass my regards to the panelists. Additionally, as a favor, please ask Nelson Avid tuck me in at the law firm as a people holding over. Okay. Ile kazi umeanza kuomba, acha nitamwambia. Jafila Indaba says become Dr. EKURU KJ. Good morning to you. Vincent Ayugi watching from South Africa, and someone Nelson always with brilliant mind. Joel Kibet, calm and composed true leader. King of Zamunda, HAVI is using jabs to these unlanded friends, overworking than the government in fighting the vaccine. Pun intended. All right. Benjamin says what is next for LSK? That is on YouTube. Facebook very quickly. So I think there are a few things we need to pick from Facebook. Sababu issue ya wananchi. Alafu tukirudi we talk about the Machakos for are we normalizing extrajudicial killings. Maskimali Twitter choosing Kenya, Ghana over Kenya should be seen as an issue. Robert Kidum, good morning, gents listening. Shadrach Amanda Makakinyi, LAIBUTA was my teacher. HAVI is my current president. EKURU is my future president. Jeffrey Rogg asked the Omwami why he didn't come with his general's uniform. Kama leo ametupea deal ndogo. Haya, Isaka Dominic Chegofara marusha wa points. Asante.
Was it a communist?
Yes, Pauline Cherop anasema good morning. Good morning Team Tackle. Good morning to you. Perry Rob. Manu anasema good. I'm trying to find a question here. There's someone else a question. Karis John. Ajala, today I'm locked here. Let's have HAVI, Dr. EKURU, Dr. Ndi Irungu Nyakera, Sosiona na Twali, Mr. Allah in one show. As Dr. EKURU quote is to foresee a real disintegration of the country come 2022. Haya, uko tayari rais, umelepewa kazi. Wangungu Kaduma, hakuna story hapa. Let Dr. EKURU court declare to fight for the presidency today with the general as his deputy. Tutachagua hao saa 2 asubuhi. Haya.
Okay. Nasemaga tu lakini akifika kwa ballot.
Gideon Kimuta sama IGB about the JSC nominee for the position of CJ. Can the JSC be caused or compelled to publicize the interview results for all candidates? I think that's what LSK is trying to push, or HAVI for that matter, because now LSK has regulated.
It's not a HAVI matter. I think that is what we need to dissuade ourselves from.
Because the reason I'm saying that is because when I declared that a statement was coming from LSK,
no.
They said no, it's HAVI. The statement.
I think we need to correct that, and that's what I was saying.
Yes.
Leave the 8, leave HAVI. Look at the state. Assume the statement was signed by MUGAMBI LAIBUTA.
Yes. Still a statement.
who is not a council member, just a normal LSK member. Are those fundamental questions? And I said yes. So we think we need to divorce the personality of HAVI and the personality of the aide.
Although I have a different issue, LAIBUTA. HAVI is our president. He is the face of our society right now. So when HAVI asks this question, it can be rightfully assumed he's asking it on behalf of
you know it's true. But you see people start attacking HAVI.
Yes,
people start attacking HAVI
but then
instead of looking at the issues that HAVI is raising.
But that is the disrespect we have for our leadership. Why did we elect HAVI as our president? Sometimes we may have to have faith in that HAVI may make certain decision in what we hope is in the best interest of the society. Okay? Yes. So whereas we can talk issues, but I also don't want us to say, oh, this society is faceless. There's a face
from the society. Okay.
There's a president.
Okay.
And that's why we should also hold them accountable individually or collectively.
No, what I'm trying to say, we need to devolve. It's always about, you start calling him Guevara, suspended and all that. Then we forget the issues.
But why do you think they are fighting him?
Of course, it's because they don't want this accountability.
Okay.
Because the issues are valid.
Because the issues, my point always is that, are the issues valid?
That's why we must not blind HAVI and say, now we don't have a HAVI. Since HAVI is raising these fundamental issues, as our leader, we must support him and say, yes, HAVI is leading us correctly on these particular issues. I think when we try to say, oh, let's forget about HAVI, then we cannot forget about HAVI because he's the leader we elected.
Maskimele says we also need the 2022 presidential candidates. Moshangi Gishungu watching. Shadrack, Wakili Shadrack. Gerard asked the panelists to propose. Okay. Monde says, Gerard asked the panelists to propose task solution statements because we can't lament forever. See, we cannot talk forever. Ask my learned friends to tell Kenyans how they can salvage this country. That is on you guys. Chris Tanko says, I like the arguments from LAIBUTA. Okay. Abigail Wanjiru Gigonja says, LAIBUTA speaking facts. The LSK is compromised starting with HAVI himself. You come LAIBUTA amesema kitu kama hiyo. You've been given a statement on your mouth.
Compromise with chai.
So ina chai Guevara. Wangungu Katuma says, for me, my question is this: can Judge Koome really stand up against the executive? And I think that's a very valid question. Executive pressure. We know it's coming. It's guaranteed. I don't think she answered that question very well. The bar was set high by Judge Maraga. It's very high indeed. Ask yourself this: 2017, does the uchaguzi get overturned under a regime? I highly doubt it. We need a woman as strong as Nancy Pelosi, who by all means stood against the bully Donald J. Trump. Okay, that's something you guys need to really pick up on. Wanjiru sema is called LAIBUTA very shopka. Okay. Nathan Kipto Arab says, I like the discussion. Ongera Mr. Gerald, asante sana. Kwa Stanley Men enough debating sense. Bravo, thank you. Lacoste, a strong debate today. Sarah Solim, ask them their take on the fate of BBI after Parliament. And that's just a good morning, tuned in from Juba. I love the discussion. Thank you so much, Anita. Joshua Kemboy, morning, Mr. Bito, kindly say I to AUKOT and Wakili Avi, and please bring them to Tamasha Emporium Grill for nyama choma. Eldoret. When we are in a time in Eldoret, tutaenda pale tukule nyama. It belongs to a friend of mine from Masoria. Thank you so much. Now you go and swipe. You also want to be part of that 10 million. You like people who swipe. For me, nilisema I opened wallet.
Nimeswipe paka nimefilisika.
Kana. Wewe filisika bwana rais. Ndio labda uache koti leo. Erickson Odiama said the Crickler report recommended an IBC to be fully reconsidered 3 years before elections. What next to your current situation? Those are things I need you guys to pick up with. But Dr. Nokin Owino says, Sawa, we have several guys with. Okay. Erickson Odiambo, how can we have a referendum without a trustworthy referee in place? Okay. Boniface Munana BM, Avi is such a brilliant and brave guy. Let him keep on protecting the constitution. Evans Nyangano, Gerald JC should publish results and scores awarded to each candidate, just like Moi University did a few years ago for VC candidates. Abigail Wanjiru Kikonyo, my only concern is that even as we request for accountability of the nomination process of the Justice Martha Koome as the Chief Justice, let us be very clear that we are not attacking the integrity of that process in a way that demeans the legitimacy of the Lady Justice Martha Koome as a very worthy and deserving incoming CJ, because as the so-called toxic feminist will cause an uproar like no other. Okay, I think everyone is accepting that she's competent, but they're only questioning the process. So I don't think you guys need to cause an uproar unless you had already premeditated it. Okay. Chelgate Andre says, following asante sana. John W. Kari says, good morning. Kindly ask the gentleman, the BBI nonsense has been declared unconstitutional, and if both houses pass it, and even proceeds to a referendum, how then the will of the people will be respected? Swale. Daniel Roy falling from Mikino. Thank you, Robert Kidum. The bench is inspirational. Pass my regards to them. Jirobito, asante sana. Nick Barmao, everyone complaining of corruption. Corruption is now the head. Now, mesema corruption is no longer corruption, it's theft. Kuru anasema inaitwa wizi. Kiptek, what a show. GB Live ni meiba time ya thirikari. Haya, hata hiyo kazi ya thirikari tukula hata sisi kidogo. Cherono Jeba Kipsajingo anasema this good stuff. Good host. Gerald, thank you so much. They're from America. Agakife, good morning. Mushangi Shungu sense is like knowledge. You either have it or not. Okay. Wilson Chelelgo salimia havi umekanyaga waya hiyo ni weekly waya iko tayari. Duncan Owino, good morning, say to Nelson Avi, I like his mastery of English. Waigera Kono, I'm happy for this show, very educative. Asante sana kama senior. Good morning, my regards to panel one love. Evans Kidai ambia Avi is a ship governing a group of hyenas. Aaron Deritu, some morning GB, good morning to Aaron Deritu. Mushangi Kishungo as tell Avi to be strong and of good faith. The fruits of change are sweet. Just also to my good morning team, brilliant legal minds.
The hyenas are not eating the sheep.
Not yet.
But now he's a sheep. Now he cannot eat the hyenas. Okay. Good morning team, a brilliant mind. Peerless is just press on. Asante sana wasema karada rais. Stan Meli sasa anadimbua his own pocket while the other goons are collecting free income. Kenya Siami. Kenya, can we question to the wakilis? A while ago Justice Maraga said that the parliament was to be dissolved. How will that affect the BBI process? Is it legal? Now it's being discussed under an illegal house. Agnes Lim, I have a big problem. I'm requesting Avi to tell me how to go about. I was dismissed on my job 2013 and to court. You can send me a message, then we can see how best we can assist you. Stan Melly, so it's Avi next move surrounding LSK. You come at Mesema, he wants to suspend the law. You come and to put in. First Skanda, good morning, Bitok Sober Tackle today. Bravo guys. Nelson Avi is a good leader, President. You're sobering, qualified. Please keep on wakili. Chepkok Felix and Sama, good morning. Victor Koila, good work, Gerald. My question is the appointment of IBC by President. Is it legally constituted? Thank you so much, Victor, for that. Good morning, Gerald Bitok. Thank you, Sana Jepkwek Felix. Max Kimeli, since the LSK nominee for IBC selection panel was not sworn in, is the panel as currently constituted okay? Julius Nyokabi, great show watching from Buruburu. Brilliant brains. Asante Sana. Great show watching from Eldoret. That is Chepkok. Faisal Vesal, Avi is a brilliant brain. Despite the turbulence, I still believe he's a man of integrity. Great show watching from Eldoret. Jakama Senior, the Murate of this country are dangerous. Only, guys, just to avoid spending too much time, issues that have been raised on this side. You're talking about IBC, you know, the selection panel that was issued by the president. You're talking about 2 years, that we need to consider 2 years to an election. We are a few months to an election. You know, we have not reconstituted. We're also talking about the legality of parliament to discuss the BBI report and also the illegalities that have been raised there within. I'll start with you, President. We quickly, you wrap it up, then I will move to the next questions. Please.
Kenya has had the misfortune of having a president who swore to uphold the constitution and the rule of law, but finds the constitution as the only inconvenience in the manner in which he exercises power. Look at the issue of the IBC commissioners. He is required to have declared vacancies in those offices within 7 days from their occurrence. How much time has passed? And look at the manner in which he's proceeding with haste. We cannot have an IBC reconstituted in the manner in which it is being done right now. Look, I do not want to be a prophet of doom, but this is exactly what President Mwai Kibaki did in 2007, and you saw where it led us. Yes, the panel has been sworn in, but without a representative of the Law Society. I must emphasize, the reason why we don't have a representative of the Law Society is because the state wanted Dorothy Jemator, who is a state officer twice.
Is it?
Yes, she serves in the HIV AIDS Tribunal. She serves in the Energy Regulatory Tribunal. She's a drafter in the BBI Steering Committee, and she's the Disciplinary Tribunal of Jubilee. How on earth can this be the representative of the Law Society? But it's our belief that the courts before which these matters are will make a quick determination in order that the person who is legitimately nominated to serve in that panel serves. And you see, this is not a quorum-based panel. It must be fully constituted. And without a representative from the Law Society,
it's illegal.
It is illegal. It cannot progress. And then let's go back to the question that was raised.
Because it's a requirement of the law, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are saying we are just raising concerns but not providing solutions. Look, there is an adage that opportunity is now here, which can also be read to mean opportunity is nowhere.
Yeah.
We cannot blame us here who raised the concerns. We are blaming you, the people of Kenya. Because how do you explain why this gentleman is not the President of the Republic of Kenya? How can you explain why this gentleman is not the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya? How can you explain that this gentleman is not the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya? You understand?
Yeah.
And I don't want to make a lot of heavy weather about this, but interrogate how processes for appointment of people in senior offices go, especially when their competences are challenged. And you see, the funny thing with the government is like Judas Iscariot. If they have appointed you knowing that you were not qualified, they tend to dig back 20, 30 years for the graduation book and sneak it so that we're able to know. You understand? We do not reward meritocracy in this country. Instead, we reward tumbocracy. What is the way forward?
And mediocrity at the same time.
Elect people with ideas into office. You understand? People with progressive ideas. People who have the ability to dedicate their time towards the service of the nation. Not individuals who, within a month of being elected, have a house in Runda, have a house in Karen. You remember what the former Attorney General of Malawi said?
Yes.
I mean, the moment you take up public office, you need to be able to account and demonstrate where your monies are. Look at me, for instance. Have you seen me in the list of ESCC, of the lawyers who have been paid questionable sums of money? No, because I don't want it. And it's for that reason that the government will never be comfortable with my leadership, because they don't have insurance on me. You understand? Not compromise me. They can't find fault. They can't dig back and come up with a graduation book where I had a pass. You understand? Things of that kind. So the choice, the ultimate choice as to how Kenya will prosper depends with the people of Kenya. You understand? And for that reason, make the electoral or appointive environment conducive for individuals who can bring change.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
If you make the recruitment of judges opaque, great minds like this one will not apply to be Court of Appeal judges. Great minds like this will not apply to be commissioners of the IBCs. You understand?
Okay.
If you compromise, if you emasculate and make Parliament a rubber stamp of the executive, I will not want to be in Parliament. You understand? Yeah. So we need to confront these issues as soon as possible in order that we may bring change and have the aspirations that are in the Constitution realized faster. We have characters in Parliament who cannot even read a newspaper. How do you expect them to read the Constitution, to read an act, to go through a bill, and make laws that are beneficial to you, oversight the executive, and ask the monies that were allocated for the COVID relief fund, where are they? You see, as we speak right now, we don't have a relief management act. You understand? Yet the Health Act provides specifically that the minister, the cabinet secretary in charge of health, ought to have put in place such an act within a period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Two questions that have been raised, Mwalimu. Yes. Olez, nafunienda kwa Rais. Now, the questions, the legality of Parliament is a question about going to LSK, what they want to occupy Parliament. BBI is being discussed in Parliament. Now, let's look at it in two phases. First of all, the legality of BBI itself as a document that has faced headwinds in Parliament, and the legality of Parliament discussing the same document.
An illegal.
Yes, an illegal Parliament discussing the document. First of all, is the document, what are the legal issues that you have with the document? And also, is it mandated as an illegal entity to discuss it?
Actually, there are two issues. There's the legality and there's legitimacy of everything. One, Parliament is not properly constituted. But the advisory by Chief Justice Emeritus, who stated that Parliament should be dissolved for failing, one, to enact legislation to meet the 2/3 gender rule, and for failing to meet the 2/3 gender rule. Of course, that is also subject to litigation, so we will wait for that decision. But in my view, Parliament is not properly constituted for that failure, because you remember in the Constitution it gave a schedule and timelines as to when certain things should be met. The Supreme Court gave an advisory as to when the 2/3 gender rule was supposed to be met by Parliament. That has not been done, so Parliament is not properly constituted. Now, the legal issues around this document, I think one, I will call it an executive process. You know, we have the popular initiative. Yeah. This is an executive initiative. Yeah. At no point when the Constitution was being drafted was there contemplation of an executive process, because this is basically an executive process where the executive has used its political, security, administrative machinery to coerce people to pass a bill. You remember, like, for example, the collection of the signatures. There is a question at the High Court. How do you determine that voter X, that is their signature? Does IBC have a collection of signatures that they can say, LAIBUTA or HAVI, this is, they endorsed this? There's that question. Then there's a question as to what extent, what is the process of amending a constitution? Article 257. You see, there have been now revelations that different counties debated different bills. Some people say they were just typographical errors, etc. But one of the key questions is about the demarcation and the delimitation. One of the errors is about IBC's role in delimitation and the demarcation of boundaries. That is not a typographic. That is a fundamental issue, because it will determine where I come from, my constituency, whether it will continue to exist, whether there will be gerrymandering of the borders, and that kind of thing. Then another question is what we are being subjected to. I mean, what the debates in Parliament, they are cosmetic and academic, because in a popular initiative, Parliament has no role, assuming, and this is assuming, that the county process was flawless. But this one had flaws. One, there was coercion. There are questions about whether there was sufficient public participation. The answer is no. In all those counties, there was no sufficient public participation. Some debated the wrong bill that had fundamental errors. So when the bill comes to Parliament with those errors, then it is already a tainted document. Okay.
So should we accept what comes out of Parliament as an institution that is under legitimate?
It will definitely be challenged, because the Parliament, ideally, in my view, lacks legitimacy even to debate the reports that came from the counties. If at all they had those documents were legitimate, then the only role is either to vote yes or no. The only thing they can do is call for public participation. Is that, should we vote yes or should we vote no? Yeah, but this being an executive initiative, yes, we have seen the coercion and the kind of, I mean, some senators were arrested a few days ago on the same day of debate. What does that tell you?
Okay, so what do you think is the fate of the BI then, from the issues that you've raised?
Of course, Parliament as an institution, both houses, chambers, will definitely pass, because this is simple majority. I mean, it doesn't need a super majority.
Then what happens after they pass it?
They will pass it, but then there's that court order that stops. I mean, you know, there are a lot of cases that have raised questions. The issue of whether we can amend certain provisions of the Constitution, whether we can have an executive initiative, what role, what can county assemblies debate or change certain provisions, the use of public resources in that process, the issue of whether IBC was in a position to actually counter check whether the signatures were valid or not valid. So that kind of thing. So there will definitely be a flurry of petitions to the High Court challenging not only what we have, but there will be petitions challenging the process. The question is, those so-called typographical errors, are they fundamental or not? For me, the issue of the boundaries, it's a fundamental one. It's something, because you remember, like for me, where I come from, the borders, the fights that people die every election on that border, people die. One or two people will die because of clashes. Now, if you are saying that we are creating this 70, removing the role of IBC, or having two parallel situations, then you're going to create chaos. The Kriegler report was very clear. That was one of the things that, and that's why the Constitution was very clear, I think it's Article 89, about the process of delimitation of boundaries. Fine, people argue that you can amend any provision of the Constitution, 255, 256, 257. I agree, so long as you follow the process. But you see, it's not just about process. It's about what effect will those proposals have on the law itself.
Okay. Now, President EKURU. Now, you all seem to agree that, first of all, the document has a lot of illegalities in it. The authority that has been given the mandate to approve it is illegal in itself. Now, Mwalimu has said it will pass through Parliament. Yeah, but there will be litigations in court. To a government that has shown a lot of audacity in respecting the court. So, what do you think is the fate of these things, even as you wrap up your conversation?
Let's be crystal clear here.
Yes.
I want to read to the listeners the provisions of Article 261, sub-article 7, and I want us to pay attention to the wording in that article. And it says, if Parliament fails to enact legislation in accordance with the order under Clause 6B, let's pause there. It's a fact. Parliament has failed to pass legislation relating to gender. Okay? It goes further to say, the Chief Justice shall advise the President to dissolve Parliament. And the President shall dissolve Parliament. So there is really no two-way here. There is no discretion. If we use the word may dissolve, may advise the President, then it will be a different story. So the truth for the matter is, and we can summarize here, Parliament right now is illegal. So whatever they are debating is an illegality ab initio, because they failed. The provision of Article 261 sub Article 7 kicked in long time ago. So there's really no two way about it. So even if they discuss and try to sanitize this illegality called BBI document bill, it's inconsequential. Secondly, and related to that, it has come out into the limelight that there are 3 types of bills out there. So the question really, even right now, as we debate whether this process is illegal or illegitimate or whatever, which document are we discussing? Yes. If 13 counties discuss one type of bill, another one discuss another type of bill, and then there was this other third one. So which one are we following? So there's a question really of legitimacy, both of the. I mean, I've said this repeatedly. The process was mumbo jumbo right from the very beginning. Okay. The process was not supposed to be a constitutional amendment process from the 9th of March when those guys shook hands. It was about to establish what ails this country. And as we have argued severally, what ails this country has been documented in numerous inquiry reports and commissions. Even the question around IEBC, the Kriegler Commission touched on that. Question about post-election violence, Justice Waki, Truth, Justice and Reconciliation, issues to do with land, Ndungu Commission report and all that. So we must first ask a fundamental question. So which document is Parliament right now debating?
It's a question.
Yes. So if the documents are different,
yes,
the one National Assembly is debating could be a different document. The one Senate is debating a different document. So which one are we passing and saying let's take it to the people of Kenya in a possible referendum if we are going to go that route? So this process, as you know, we've also said is an illegality right from the very beginning. Okay. Now on the question of IEBC, I hold a different view. You see, IEBC's term has not expired. Their term, I think they are appointed for 6 years. Yes. For 6 years, term of 6 years. Okay. So they can still hold the election next year. Wow. In accordance with their term. Oh, okay. The only misgiving I have in IEBC is probably the fact that they have not met the gender principle, because now we are talking about 3 commissioners who are men. Okay? But constitutionally speaking, they are properly constituted.
To have an election.
The Constitution clearly says you must have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 9 commissioners. So, again, this hullabaloo around IEBC not properly being considered the incapacity to hold next year's general election is part of the political narrative to disrupt these institutions. Okay. I've argued before that if really there is a problem within IEBC, if we know where the problem is, how come we are not addressing that particular problem? Especially, for example, electoral offenses. And people are disagreeing with the ABC just because of the presidential election. We should be seeing mass resignations of governors, senators, members of parliament, members of the county assembly, because it's the same IEBC that they are trying to fight that actually declared them as winners into these offices.
Okay.
You know, and you can see right from, I think, 1997, if I'm not wrong, we have never had a single electoral management body preside over 2 elections.
True.
This is by design.
Okay.
It's meant to disrupt this country because the people who want to be in the top leadership of this country, like we said last week, they think Kenya is their shamba. Na wako na title deed.
Na wanalima. So what's the way forward now, Doctor?
For me, I think the way forward.
What do you think? What's the thing is a fate of BBI, for instance, and Parliament?
Well, first of all, you know, for a long time I refused to discuss BBI because, like I told you before, it's been an illegality right from the very beginning. It's been directionless. I mean, you know, we prophesied this.
Yes.
The directionless nature of BBI.
And it's coming out very clear.
Because even right now,
yes,
putting the 3 documents, so which direction should we go?
Which one should we be discussing?
Which one should we be discussing?
Anyway, President HAVI.
And so when we try to actually discussing BBI is legitimizing it.
Even the discussion is illegitimate. Okay, President HAVI. Now, you talk about some 4 guys who disappeared from Kitengela. Their bodies, some of the bodies have been found. 2, I think 3 were found yesterday. And it raises very serious questions on first of all, we don't want to preempt to kill them, but the issues of, first of all, extrajudicial killing. Because you'd ask yourself, we have curfews in Nairobi. From Kitengela to Murang'a, you need to pass through roadblocks. What do you make of that? Is there a possibility? Because I've seen also some posts on some Facebook groups that we've seen where there are some police guys who have been who are running Facebook groups and, you know, saying they are limiting criminals and all that. Do you think we've legitimized extrajudicial killings, and where do you think we're heading as a country in terms of the justice system? Because also the police are complaining. There's a time I was having a conversation, I think yesterday, with one of some top cops in the country, saying the justice system is so rigged. You arrest a criminal today for defiling or for killing, the next week you find this person on the street, and you're saying, at times we are left with no option, but deal with this. What do you make of all these macabre happenings?
Well, it is a great concern, and you see these unexplained killings have prevailed in the last few months. And as you legitimately put it, we are, so to speak, in a police state where all our liberties have been surrendered to the state. So there can be no doubt whatsoever that these deaths are a mystery. And we do not want to cast aspersions as to who is responsible for it. But the ultimate safety of Kenyans rests in the hands of the state, the police. You understand? And speaking as a member of the Law Society and as the president, forget about those other lesser mortals may want to say about my status. It's a problem that has also afflicted the legal fraternity. We've lost so many of our members in unexplained circumstances. As we speak right now, there is an advocate who has disappeared for the last 2 months. Now, this country has invested a lot in security, surveillance, cameras all over, well-equipped police service that should be able to give us instant answers. And when we fail to get instant answers on matters of this kind, then we can only blame the police. There are many police officers who are virtuous, who do a good job in the service of the nation. Yes. And we must congratulate them. We must thank them for what they're doing. But it cannot be lost. There is a possibility that within the police service, there are also criminals in uniform. Do you remember the other day, there was a very elaborate expose by the Citizen TV.
Guns Gala?
Yeah, on the sale of police uniforms, handcuffs. Well, I have my doubts as to whether or not the firearms that were displayed were police firearms. They can definitely not be police firearms. But we saw police uniforms. We saw gear. We saw a bulletproof vest, all branded with police colors. You understand? Yes. But how did the police respond to it? In his characteristic style, the dramatic Kinoti came with a display as if it was that that drama that used to be aired under the direction of Dr. Alfred Mutua.
Cobra Squad.
Cobra Squad. I mean, this is a serious concern. You need to answer to the Kenyan public as to what is happening. You understand? Yeah. And I think it doesn't augur very well. It was our expectation that George Kinoti will head the Directorate of Criminal Investigation in the most professional manner. He's been a big disappointment. And we say so with tremendous respect to all those uniformed and non-uniformed officers who do an excellent job. What do we do? The Inspector General of Police, my good friend Muchambai, and the DCI owe us an explanation. They need to tell us under what circumstances did these 4 gentlemen disappear? Yes. Who killed them? Why were they killed? Okay, what guarantees are there that this will not happen again? Okay. And more fundamentally, and we must emphasize this, we are now in a police state. You understand? Yes. Everybody's supposed to be quiet or at home. The only person roaming outside before used to be the policeman and the dog. But I think even this time, the dog is at home. So the only person outside is the police. We need to be told. Yeah. And it's a serious concern. It's a serious concern.
There's someone who mentioned yesterday and said that you've been saying the country has gone to the dogs. The dogs have refused. The country has not gone to them. What do you make of that? Part of being a lawyer is interrogating events. The dogs don't want this. Yes, they're saying, no, it's not with us. This country is not with us.
Don't disrespect dogs, tafadhali. I mean, it's really unfair.
I mean, they're also under curfew. So, I mean, it's only the police that are outside.
Okay, LAIBUTA. Yes. Part of being a lawyer is being interrogating events. All these disappearances. By now, someone was reminded me there's a guy called Danson Mwitiki, who disappeared. It's almost a year now, right? Yeah. He's never to be found. All these disappearances we talk about and the kind of lethargy that the police use in finding out these things until they give us the bodies. The only thing is when they're announcing that we found the body. What do you make of this disappearance?
It's quite sad because I lost a close friend a few months ago who disappeared and the body was found in mysterious circumstances. Yeah. And the unfortunate, even you remember our colleague was killed. Yeah. I mean, it's now 5 years ago. The matter has the matter has the matter has never been concluded. It's just what my seniors have been talking about here, the breakdown of the rule of law. Because if at all there's allegations that these individuals were involved in criminal activities, there should be due process. Arrest them, charge them, present evidence in court. But as we also said, also that system is not as is not as straight as it should be. It's not a process that inspires confidence. Look at it this way: even leave about the disappearing. Prosecutions these days are dependent on for some points, especially for politicians, whether you support BBI or not. If you support, your prosecution is the file goes down the heap. If you start opposing, your file starts, it rises.
And you're also labeled.
Yeah, it rises. So the questions that are being raised is, for one, why are these people, why were they executed? Who executed them? And how did, with all these roadblocks, how did a body move from Kitengela to Muranga? And you also remember the Oscar Kingara, executed in broad daylight. Next to university hostels. There have been these executions. The issues of Kwekwe, Mungiki and all this. And there were even reports by Professor Alston about there was a serious report, a very comprehensive report by Professor Alston where he said there's a breakdown in the whole criminal justice system. There's a breakdown in the investigations. There's a breakdown in how you collect evidence. There's a breakdown in how the matters are prosecuted. There's a breakdown in the judicial processes. Dr. EKURU talked here about Kriegler, Waki, reports that guided us on how to move forward about certain issues. Professor Alston's report told us how we need to move forward in terms of enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. But of course, as Kenyans, what do we do with these reports that guide us? We shelve them. And then what means is that these extrajudicial killings will continue. That's just the unfortunate bit.
What do you make of that?
Let me give you my experience. When I was just about to complete my PhD from Warwick, way back, I think it was 2004 or 2003 thereabouts. I'd spent like 3 months in the refugee camps of Dadaab and Kakuma collecting evidence and fine-tuning my final, document before submitting. I parked my car outside, just outside Anniversary Towers. And I went to have coffee in some restaurant down there at Azina Towers. It's been a very nice coffee shop.
The ground floor.
When I came back, I found my car had been broken into. My laptop had been, because I'd put it under the seat. So, the Askari, who was manning Goethe Institute, gave a chase to these guys. About 3 guys. At the roundabout in Paul, he met with 3 cops manning the traffic. And he told them, these 3 people are actually carrying a bag that they had stolen from a car. And this is an Askari. The police told the guy, no, we are not, we are traffic policemen. You go to Central Police. Okay?
And the guys are there?
The guys just ran and took off. They basically took off with my laptop, my research of about 3 months. And, it costed me 1 year this was very painful for me. It costed me 1 year of redoing my chapters again. But that's not the story I want to tell. We went to the police station, Central Police Station. And I want to put into context these killings. We were given a police officer from the DCIO office. The watchman from Maendeleo House gave a description, a vivid description of these guys who broke into my car and stole my laptop. Do you know, I was in shock, utter shock, President, when this cop picked his mobile and called a guy called Ziwa. Wapi ile laptop vijana wako walichukua hapa Maendeleo House or Anniversary Towers.
Wow.
I was dumbfounded. I was so shocked. So I'm asking him, how do you know these things? I say, no, we know these guys, Nairobi is divided into zones. So we know the guys who operate. So those boys are stealing this laptop, but their boss is this guy called Ziwa. Do you know, I went up to St. Teresa in Isili and actually met this guy.
Wow.
He's not the one who stole my laptop, but he has these boys who allegedly stole my laptop. And I'm seated there with this guy, and he's asking me, what are the specs? He's even using very technical terms. What are the specs in your laptop? Then he tells me,
what a civilized thing.
And I'm there, seated with the cop is sitting here, and I'm here, and the guy is actually telling me, what are the specs? What year is it? So of course I give him the specs, and he tells me, okay, there can only be 3 places where your laptop could be. There's Revlon Towers, just next to Revlon Plaza, next to on Kimathi Street. It's supposed to be a store of stolen things. Then there's some place somewhere in Bama Market, Jogo Road, and then there's some place in I think Dandora. So why am I telling you this story? Because
so what happened?
Eventually, I never got the laptop back.
Okay.
I was told, okay, you make sure you carry 40,000. Yeah. I mean, I'm just a student operating on a shoestring budget, but I had to look for this 40,000 because, I needed one folder, and I even told this guy, please just go with this CD-ROM, copy for me this folder. It's labeled PhD. If you give me that alone, I'll be happy. Anyway, eventually I never got to get my laptop back. It forced me to redo my thesis. Costed me 1 year. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because these extrajudicial killings, it's not to say that the security apparatus are not aware of who is committing these offenses. They are very much aware. And in fact, this reminds me of Nairobi Half-Life. I don't know whether you've all watched Nairobi Half-Life.
Yes.
If you watch Nairobi Half-Life, it actually tells the story of criminality where there is collusion between security forces and criminals. And when they are done with you, by then they are the ones who kill you. Yeah, when the cops are done with you now committing these offenses. And again, you saw, for example, the reaction by Kinoti to the expose by the Citizen TV. I mean, if I were him, I would welcome this report and say, you know what?
These are headway for us. Yes.
Maybe take these guns into our forensic laboratory and establish whether they're actually government or not government. But his reaction was defense.
Wow.
And yet, he is the person we expect to investigate for us the commission or omission of any criminality. So, in a nutshell, these are stories Kenyans will tell you on the ground. The police are aware of some of these criminals. They're even aware where they operate from. And they know the warlords. And they use their boys to commit these offenses. So I will not be surprised if security apparatus know about all this.
Wow. Are we living in a country or living in a narco state?
You know, like if you ask people like myself who comes from the Kenya of the north, you know, the sound of a gun is breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us. So we are used to.
Is all the madness.
And that's why sometimes in the northern part of Kenya, an AK-47 is a walking stick because, you know, the state is absent. So you have to defend yourself against this violence, both from across the border in Ethiopia, South Sudan, Uganda, and even within. And the truth of the matter is, people do not feel secure in this country anymore because even when you go and report really an offense that you even know the people who committed it, the police will never arrest. For the last 3 months, I've been trying to get somebody arrested who conned my client $500,000.
Wow.
And they even know, the cop even know these guys. We've given them the telephone number. They have even tracked the guy, saying, oh, we've seen he's in his sleep. He's where? Why not arrest the guy? You know?
Okay. You're having a movie in the police station on location.
Talking said other countries have mafia. In Kenya, the mafia have a country.
Okay, anyway, as we end up toile and bunge iko wazi, tunafungua bunge briefly 07798010 bunge la mwananchi tunaifungua iko wazi 07798010 07798010 bunge la mwananchi iko wazi, nambari ni 07798010. Asante sana, aje tusikie wanasemaje. Jambo, habari asubuhi.
Habari yako Gerard?
Salama sana, bunge la mwananchi.
My name is Martin.
Yes, Martin.
I'm calling from Kasarani.
Yes, Martin, habari ya Kasarani?
Salama sana.
Umesikia mambo vile alivyo?
Yeah, I followed the conversation from 7 a.m. So I want to give my remarks.
Please.
Number one, I want to start by thanking the panelists, and especially President HAVI and Dr. EKURU, for their personal sacrifices in advancing the rule of law, good governance, human rights, and constitutionalism. Yeah. So I want in a very special way to just tell President HAVI and Dr. EKURU that sometimes they don't get to hear these things from, we ordinary citizens, but we watch, we see, and we appreciate their work. And even it seems like it's so hot up there or in the streets, they must not stop what they are doing. Then number two, I want to speak about the issue of the parliamentary probe. We saw what the charade that was happening yesterday, and we saw the kind of impunity and also the level of helplessness by the committee. Because we are not just in the business of discussing what is wrong with our country, we must also try to think of how we can make things better. So my question to the panelist one is, how can we make sure that we augment these hearings by the committees of our houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate? And in mind, I have what happens in the US, whereby the rules of procedure allow when a member of parliament is questioning a witness or a person who is appearing before the committee, there is minimal interference from other, committee members or even from the chairman, so that that person is able to put that person on his defense or on her defense, and we are able to get these answers. So I think part of the problem that we have is the rules of procedure or the standing orders that guide our, those hearings, they leave a lot of room for people to interfere and to delegitimize the process and to frustrate the process. So that is number one. Number two, I want to speak about the BBI. Notwithstanding the issues of legitimacy and the illegalities about the process or even the parliament that is considering the bill now, if we were to consider the things that have been put in the BBI, and I want to thank the president for giving a very powerful presentation in parliament on why these things is not good for us. But one of the things that I think has escaped a lot of people and which concerns me is the amount of powers that this BBI is, proposing to give the president of Kenya. Already we have seen the kind of impunity that this president has, been governing this country with, or even misgoverning this country with. And sometimes when I look at those powers and I also consider the South African model, whereby you have a president who appears in parliament, he is asked questions by members of parliament. Even yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa was appearing before the Zondo Commission, into that inquiry into state capture. And the president sits there, he is asked questions, he is taken to task about his past actions and decisions and utterances. But in this country, we are treating the president as some kind of a demigod, We need to have a model that makes sure that our president there is accountability at that high level, because this person has a lot of, authority and power. Can we have level of accountability? Then lastly, is what Dr. EKURU was talking about, the breakdown in the rule of law. And I want us to look at what is happening in Uganda, because, people say things don't go wrong, they start going wrong. And we are creating a culture whereby there is a lot of, impunity, especially within the security forces. And today what is happening in Uganda, we see a lot of forced disappearances, and abductions. And those people that have been abducted, you can see it from the opposition. People are even having their limbs, dismembered, and others being, tortured to death, others being killed. And this culture that you are promoting is going to, first it will affect those politicians that we don't like or who have a different opinion. And then it will come down to we, the ordinary members, of the society. So we need to nip this thing in the bud before it becomes a disaster for us. And we must not allow or accept a culture whereby it is the rule of man or the rule of the police. We need to emphasize the rule of law, good governance, and let there be accountability within our security agencies. The National Police Service must do better, and we must make sure that the kind of National Police Service that we imagined post as part of the post-conflict reconstruction after 2007, we go back to those ideas. That is our best bet. Otherwise, I wish you a good weekend, and thank you to the panelists.
Thank you so much, my brother. We really appreciate it. Have a good day. Jambo, good morning. Bunga la mwenye nchi iko wazi.
Good morning, Gerard.
Good morning to you, sir. Who am I speaking to?
This is Steve from Kasarani.
Steve, jambo.
Salama sana.
Niambie dadi.
Nimekuwa nikisikiliza mswada this morning.
Yes, sir.
And Gerard, the things that are happening in this country, they are totally out of hand.
Okay.
Kwa sababu, do you know, Gerard, if today you will go to the police station, on a report na utafute police, you give him some little money. Nikikuja hapo, they will not listen to me.
Yes.
They will not want to hear my side story. They will just act because wewe unawapatia kitu. That is the saddest part of the story. Another thing is that our police, the biggest work they are doing in this country is to obtain. They don't do their work anymore. The police don't do their work anymore. But anyway, it starts from the top. Because when the executive is given orders by the court and they cannot respect those orders, what is it? If your father will show disrespect to your uncle publicly, definitely even the children will disrespect the uncle.
Okay.
So that is what is happening in this country. No one respects the law. Even them that are supposed to enforce the law, what they do, they break the law.
Okay.
And nothing is done to them. If the police officer commits a crime, he will just be transferred to another part of the country. That's all. That is the worst that can happen to that person. Yeah.
Sawa, asante sana ndugu yangu kutoka Kasarani. Salimia sana watu wa Kasarani na thank you so much for watching Sheria Wiki.
Asante.
Haya, bunge la mwenyeji bado iko wazi kwa dakika nyingine moja. Bwana nimepoteza simu karibu 4. Nitachukua tu simu 2 za mwisho alafu tufunge bunge. I'll take 2 calls alafu tufunge bunge tukifunga virago. Tukifanya virago. Naona Paul Nchela sema EKURU incident is what's happening to many Kenyans. Through police know the thieves. Solomon Kiwa says you share my sentiment. Akaja tusikie jambo, habari asubuhi. Bunge la mwenyeji. Bunge la mwenyeji.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
And this is Harold Mugozi.
Yes, Harold. Tuambie.
And we appreciate the panelists for the time they have taken to share with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, I just have one question, probably to the President HAVI. And the question is, where we are with BBI right now, is it that the Wananchi are helpless or there is nothing we can do to change the process because we were aware of the challenges that were there in BPI, the fact that not the same document were discussed in all the county assemblies and the irregularities that surround the process. So is there a way that the Law Society of Kenya, or is there something the people of Kenya can do right now to stop the process?
Thank you so much. Have a good day. All right, I think that will bank my last call because we have only 5 minutes left. Asante sana for the guys who have called in. Bunge la Mwananchi wale mwafungia nje poleni. Pia Monday bado ni siku. Very quickly, if there's anything you've picked from the calls that we've had. But ruhusu kwanza niangalie kuna watu wamejaa hapa YouTube. Naona John Jagan the other countries are mafia in Kenya. The mafia of a country. Good one, LAIBUTA. Ongoya says hello. Good morning to you, Ongoya. Good to see you. That's YouTube. Chris Kamwa Bitoka, I'm enjoying the conversation. Asante sana. Charles Bariwat. Good morning, team. Enjoying the show. Thank you. Madina, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on how the issue of enforcing court orders can be resolved, especially against governmental entities also approaching the corruption issue in. Okay. Blaise Opili, thanks for the show, Bitoka. Asante sana, Abraham Koech. Naona alikuja alikuwa anasema is there a possibility that Martha Koome was someone's candidate. Okay. John Jagan anasema leo lileta wakili watatu kwa kipindi. Leo hatutoki kwa studio. King of Samunda, all we are hearing is that there are loopholes in LSK. What solutions is the way forward? John Gibet, suppose our despotic government decide to postpone 2022 elections. What are the legal actions possible? King of Samunda, HAVI is issuing jobs. Okay, I think I read that. Okay. Very quickly to seeing also Gideon Bowen. Good morning, Gerald. I love your show. Say hi to Duncan. I love his opinions. Asante sana. Duncan is on with us today. Tuko na Daktari EKURU, President Nelson HAVI na MUGAMBI LAIBUTA mwenyewe. Engineer Stan Ronan says great platform and panelists. Gerald Peter guests are oozing tons of wisdom and knowledge. Thanks them for enlightening us. Asante sana. Belin Cherop. EKURU's incident is what's happening to many Kenyans. True police know the thieves. Solomon Kirwa, you share my sentiments. Iyo ilikuwa vipindire na sinema tupu. There was nothing tangible discussed or any grilling there. That's on the issues of grilling Murathe. Babu's conduct at the committee of inquiry, Kemsa matters, is questionable. Is he supposed to be defending, speak on behalf of anyone who is summoned? Okay. Alex Manyore, I watched a bit of how the committee handled Murathe. It was a drama show, well scripted. Corruption theft is designed and intended to be complicated, and they make sure those who in Kenya all dip their fingers. It's how they ensure they are safe. Pauline just said, but that's happening. All right. Kiblanga says the experience is very chilling. It's even worse that KGB. Dr. EKURU's experience means that he was being followed all along. And as a Kenyan, I'm shocked to the bone marrow. I just wonder for what interest they wanted EKURU's laptop and documents. Okay. President, the issue that you picked, and also what is the fate of the 41 judges? Or is it now 40? One has left.
40.
The world. Okay. So the things that have come from bunge la mwananchi alafu pia ukimaliza na hiyo tukifunga kiosk.
I'll address 2 points.
Yes.
The one is the failure to swear in the 40 judges. There were initially 41, but one died. This failure is indicative of the failure of the rule of law and disobedience of court orders over and above violation of the constitution. It's quite unfortunate. In an ideal democracy, Parliament will have impeached President Uhuru Kenyatta by now. We resolved as the Council of the Law Society of Kenya on the 11th of May to request Parliament to undertake this exercise. What did Parliament do? Most of the parliamentarians ridiculed us because they thought what we're talking about was something that was far-fetched. But anyway, this can only be done by oversight through the people themselves. It behooves us to be focused next time we're making choices insofar as leadership is concerned. What do we do about BPI? I will enumerate about 4 steps that this process is susceptible to. One is Parliament. It is expected that Parliament will pass the bill because Parliament has been emasculated, has been captured by the executive. Parliament does not even know itself or what it's doing. So expecting anything from Parliament is an exercise in intellectual futility. The next step will be the referendum, but that is only if the pending litigation in court is lost. If the court stops the process and quashes it, well and good. The rule of law will have been vindicated. If it comes to the people through the referendum, then it is the opportune moment for us to renegotiate the social contract. I think the people of Kenya should reject the damn thing.
Okay.
Over and above that, and the 4th option is, as I said before, opportunity is now here. Opportunity may be nowhere. It all depends with how you look at it. make correct choices when the ballot is brought to you. Because if you don't, they will continue ruling you with a bullet.
Okay. The same issues from bunga la mwananchi, mwalimu, umesikia mambo ya mwananchi. Na pia there are two things I want you to pick. I know there's one that the Ekuru will not pick. He said we should never discuss the possibility of postponing elections because he's saying it's an illegality. But anyway, there are two things I want you to pick. Even from the calls that you've had, and also about an issue about the we talk about the courts will reject, the court will stop, the court will stop. In a government that has showed us the audacity and the ability to disobey the court, what do we expect from this point? And now, if the president decides to, Ekuru says Putin, but now we have a closer neighbor, Farmajo has, what happens?
If the Ekuru tries to pull a Farmajo, I mean, that's unconstitutional.
But are we in a constitutional country?
Kwa
ground.
The mafia.
No, you see, I'm also trying to be cautiously optimistic.
Because there's the ideal, and then there's the
I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but there's been that debate on extension of Uhuru's term, and this started actually in 2014, 2015. So people are assuming that this is a debate that started with BBI. No. Even in the first term of Uhuru's presidency, there were discussions on whether there's a possibility of extending his term. So all these discussions about because of that Uhuru should be given time to deal with the COVID disaster, the pandemic. But he has done nothing really.
Yeah.
There's nothing that has been done to warrant extension.
Na ni yake ndio tuseme ashughulikie juu ni yake hakuna mtu
If you look at a country like
yes, if it's HAVI's court will say ngojeni HAVI amalizana court yake atengeneze.
Yeah, so extension is I mean it's the term of the president is cast in stone, especially the term of the president, so that is not negotiable. When elections should be had, the second Tuesday of the 5th year, so in August, so that's not negotiable. But a parting shot on this, I want to say, you see, Dr. Ekuru and I have been involved in constitutional review processes, not only in Kenya, but in the region and outside Africa. And one question that we ask people is, would you want to be the opposition on the opposition side of the document that you are drafting? You see, we have BBI, an executive, I call it an executive initiative.
Not popular initiative.
The current executive, will you want such document to be in place when you're in opposition? Because you see a lot of times when you're in a constitutional drafting processes, you're excited because you're in power and you can put it. Dr. Ekuru used to call it a shopping bag. That's the constitution, a shopping list. That the constitution used to do this paper that was very interesting that will say the constitutional drafting process is not a shopping list where you go into a supermarket and pick wherever you are. You have to pick what you need and what works. And sometimes what you need may not work. And what you don't want may actually work. So you remember when the constitution was being drafted, there were debates, for example, in Naivasha about whether a presidential or a parliamentary. And some people thought they will be president in 2013. So they decided to go to presidential because that will give them more power.
Some did not even want Senate
because
they didn't think they would be senators.
Because they think they will be senators. So as Kenyans, I think President HAVI has said and Dr. Ekuru has said it, of course this needs to be rejected, but we know the coercive nature of the state. They forced the signatures, they forced the counties, but you see the question, did they force them? Which document? Did they force document?
Yes,
which But parting shot, when you're drafting a constitution, ask yourself, would you want to live with that constitution
when you're in the opposite
position? Because politics flips.
Good lessons to learn. Hata wale wengine wa section ilikuwa section what 4 or was it the security bill. Anyway, sasa ndio inauma. Wanasema msumeno, wanasema sheria ni msumeno. Inakata mbele na nyuma. Daktari Ekuru.
So for me, let me say first thing from the security perspective, yes. There is one thing that today has made our police not to do their work. They claim they don't have logistics and transportation. Again, another experience I can give Kenyans. There's this case I said to you earlier that I've been trying to get somebody arrested because he conned my client about 600,000 Kenya shillings. One Saturday, the policeman told me, hatuna gari. I actually gave them my double cab with my driver, with my client, and that's how they tracked the whole day. So you can imagine, I did this because I feel the pain these people did to my client. What about an kawaida Mkenya who does not have a car? Where do you get service in this country? And that is the truth for the matter.
Yeah.
You can report to the police that somebody has stolen from you. They even know where they are. They will tell you, atuna transport. So you wonder, how then do you get service? Lastly, I just speak from this issue of the constitution. What do we need to do as a country? I think the reason we see failure in parliament, in our leadership, compared to other countries like the callers said. First, in those other countries, they put the country first. Because this country must be able to accommodate all of us in equal measure, whether you are in government or not in government. So the country must be there for us. So in those other jurisdictions, they actually put the country first. Because kama sasa sisi wa Kenya, hatuna nchi nyingine, hatuwezi ama Kenya. Yeah. This is our country.
This is the only country. Yeah.
Secondly, and related to that, the reason those leaders out there put their country first, because integrity is the number one ingredient in picking leaders. Again, like President HAVI said, this is a challenge we must take back as Kenyans. Who do we pick as our leaders? These people who are now messing up our country, who are discussing referendum worth 14 billion, as opposed to discussing vaccines and mass testing, are a reflection of us, because we are the ones who elected them. So the question of integrity comes in. Then, of course, number 3, there is the failure of the role of members of parliament as representatives of the people. What is emerging, is that these people represent themselves. They represent the parties. You remember when we were shopping for Punguza Mizigo in the 29 county assemblies, they told us, this is the party position. This is our party leader's position. So they don't think about the people who actually sent them as MCAs or as members of parliament or as senators. So there is that failure there. And of course, President HAVI has hinted at the fact, what can we do?
Yes.
There's one article in the Constitution that we have not exercised. Besides impeachment of the president, which parliament can do, even we the people have not exercised Article 104, the right to recall. We should be able to see wananchi begin to gather signatures to recall parliamentarians ambao wamezembea kwa kazi yao. Unaona? And the last one for me, of course, all is not lost. Assuming, because this is in a system ya majambazi and the mafia of our country, they might force this BBI on Kenyans or even fake a referendum. In fact, there's a conversation going on whether they can sidestep the referendum, the people in a referendum, and pass the bill as parliamentarians, and the president signs it. And that's why we got those orders. I think Thirdway Alliance actually got those orders against the president not signing the bill. Assuming, because this system ya majambasi, they go all the way, I still want to remind Kenyans, we can still undo the damage of BBI, but we have to organize ourselves properly. Punguza Mizigo Kenya is still on the table, as you know.
Yeah.
And I can see people are still endorsing, actually, because we have to prepare ourselves. If they force this system to us, we must try to undo the damage BBI will cause to the country, because it will be so devastating. It's like the current national debt, which is now close at what, 7-point-something trillion Kenya shillings. You see, we might think this is a debt. This is a debt that we must pay as here. It's not us who are going to pay this debt. Trust me, it's our children and their children who are going to pay. So we have to prepare ourselves, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, Punguza Mizigo, we'll undo this.
Narudi. Ndio nimeweka hapa ambia punguza, if you want to endorse Punguza Mizigo, Punguza Mizigo, www.punguzamizigo.org. I think that should be the right address. www.punguzamizigo.org.
And guys by there are signing.
So we are waiting to see. Now we'll have an option, finally, because now you're saying BBI is bad, then what is the option? The Constitution has not said it is not an option. So clearly, we need a third way out of this thing. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. It's been a great tackle. Mr. President, we wish you the very best in your embattlement. I hope you come out successful.
Thank you. I'll go and take my military fatigues.
And get back to work.
Battle this mad dogs, as Ronald Reagan would say.
You need the fourth man in the fire. That could be EKURU. Guys, it's been a pleasure having you. Now, Julius Favor and Mr. President and AUKOT, we are looking up to you, friends. Your wisdom is highly appreciated. This country, we are on our own. Ombenu Rais, Nimona, you've already formed a remarkable presidential candidates. If it was you today, there's been wisdom oozing out of these guys. Very enlightening. Next move, can they go to court and stop this BBI thing? Because the referendum results might also be rigged. Okay, this is my team, very proud of LSK President, very informed. Asante sana. Engineer Standro, a great platform, and panel panelists, Gerald Bitok, the guests, are oozing tons of wisdom and knowledge. Thank you to them for enlightening us. It's been a great time. This has been the Tackle Sheria Wiki, and the Tackle takes off for the weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. Until then, enjoy your weekend and take care. This has been the Tackle. The Tackle ends now. Bye-bye. We love you. Signing out.